The Drowning Moon, Episodes 11-15 Review. She entered the Moriarty mansion hoping to find employment. But before the day was over, Eve would come face to face with the man she believed had murdered her mother. And as if that discovery were not dangerous enough, she also found herself trapped beneath the watchful eyes of Master Vincent Moriarty, a man who already knew the secret she had worked for years to hide. Welcome, first-time viewers and returning members of the Stories by Anna family. Today, we are reviewing episodes 11 through 15 of The Drowning Moon, where Eve's search for independence leads her directly into a mansion filled with secrets, danger, and a silver-haired man who may be far more calculating than she realizes. Please remember to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you can continue this journey with the Stories by Anna family. Let us step back into the story. After the terrible encounter in Skellington Town, Eve was relieved to discover that the newspapers had not mentioned her slapping Mr. Walsh. She searched every page, expecting to see her name attached to another scandal, but there was nothing. For one brief moment, Eve believed she had escaped the consequences. The Wilsey family had apparently decided to keep the incident quiet. After all, Mr. Walsh probably did not want anyone asking why a young governess had slapped him in the first place. Unfortunately, silence in the newspaper did not mean silence among the wealthy families. News traveled quickly behind closed doors. Within a few days, Eve received 2 carefully worded letters informing her that the families had already found governesses and would no longer require her services. The words sounded polite, but the message was clear. They had heard about the incident. Once again, Eve's opportunity to become independent appeared to be slipping away. Then, when she least expected it, a mysterious letter arrived. It was addressed directly to Genevieve Barlow and had been sent by the Moriarty family of Skellington Town. Eve had never applied to work for them. According to the letter, someone had recommended her educational qualifications, and the family wanted her to visit their mansion and apply for the position of governess. The salary was generous, 1 gold coin and 2 silver coins every month. For the first time, Eve was not begging a family to consider her. A powerful family was inviting her. To Eve, the letter felt like a ray of hope, but the timing of that letter is worth paying attention to. Eugene would normally have been the person outside to receive it, and Eugene was the type of man who would have investigated the Moriarty family before allowing Eve anywhere near their home. But on that particular morning, he was inside searching for a ribbon. That one small circumstance placed the mysterious invitation directly into Eve's hands. And sometimes the smallest circumstances can lead us directly toward the greatest danger. The following morning, Eve prepared herself carefully. She reminded herself of everything she must not do. No breaking vases, no pouring tea on anyone, and most importantly, no slapping anyone. She was determined that this interview would be different. During the carriage ride to Skellington Town, Eve encountered Heather, a proud young woman who believed marriage was the only sensible future for someone like Eve. Heather mocked Eve's worn shoes, her old clothing, and her determination to find employment. She proudly spoke about her husband's position and the pearl necklace he had purchased for her. But Eve reminded her that the same husband had once been engaged to another woman. That single remark exposed the truth Heather wanted everyone to forget. Heather might have possessed expensive jewelry and social connections, but Eve still possessed something Heather could not purchase, a fearless tongue. However, Eve eventually remembered Lady Aubrey's warning. When someone stands higher on society's ladder, a public argument can damage the person standing below. So Eve apologized. Not because Heather was right, but because Eve understood that she could not afford another enemy. When Eve finally reached the Moriarty mansion, she was overwhelmed by its size. This was not simply a large home. It looked like a castle. The beautiful corridors, carved pillars, grand staircases, and countless candlestands revealed that the Moriartys were not an ordinary family. They possessed wealth, influence, and power, and that made the invitation even more suspicious. Why would a family this powerful personally seek out an inexperienced young governess from Meadow? Eve was greeted by Theo, the family's butler, who informed her that she would not be interviewed by Mr. or Mrs. Moriarty. Instead, her employment would depend entirely upon a 9-year-old girl named Allie. If Allie liked her, the position would belong to her. The arrangement was unusual. Theo led Eve into a large piano room and quickly disappeared, leaving her alone with the silent little girl. Allie refused to acknowledge Eve. She struck the piano keys harshly whenever Eve attempted to approach her, but Eve did not lose her patience. Instead of demanding obedience, Eve spoke gently. She introduced herself. She explained that learning could be enjoyable when approached in the right way. And when she noticed Allie's interest in the piano, Eve sat beside her and began to play. That moment revealed one of Eve's greatest strengths. She did not see Allie as merely a spoiled child who needed discipline. She saw a little girl who needed someone willing to understand her. When Allie finally played, Eve was amazed by her talent. Rather than criticizing the child's mistakes, Eve encouraged her. She told Allie that she had never heard such a young girl play so beautifully. Then Eve shared something about herself. She explained that when she was Allie's age, she had been terrible at the piano and made so many mistakes that Lady Aubrey thought it might be better if she stopped touching the instrument altogether. That changed the atmosphere. Eve was not placing herself above Allie. She was placing herself beside her. And for the first time, the child appeared hopeful. Eve had reached her, but just when the tension inside the room began to disappear, a man's voice came from behind them. Eve turned toward the doorway, and there stood the last person she expected to see, the rude, silver-haired stranger she had encountered before. Her expression immediately changed. Eve demanded to know what he was doing there. His response was simple. This was his house. The arrogant stranger was Vincent Moriarty, and little Allie was his sister. Out of every household in Skellington Town, Eve had somehow been invited into his. Vincent immediately began questioning her qualifications. He pointed out that the school listed in her educational records normally did not accept children from Eve's social background. He questioned her age. He studied her answers, and Eve quickly realized that Vincent knew far more about her than he should. When she asked whether he had any questions about her ability to become Allie's governess, Vincent decided to ask about something entirely different. He wanted to know how her bottom was feeling after her previous fall. Eve was horrified. Even Theo appeared uncomfortable and suddenly found the wall very interesting. Vincent was rude, shameless, and clearly enjoying Eve's embarrassment. That was enough for her. Eve refused the tea, thanked them for the opportunity, and decided she would rather remain unemployed than work beneath the same roof as Vincent Moriarty. She walked out. But then something unexpected happened. The little girl who had barely spoken tugged at Vincent's clothing. Allie asked him to make Eve stay. Think about that for a moment. Eve had only spent a short time with this child, yet Allie had already formed enough of a connection with her to ask Vincent not to let her leave. That tells us that whatever Allie had experienced with previous governesses, Eve was different. Vincent followed Eve into the corridor. She made it clear that she was refusing the job. But Vincent had another card to play. He revealed that he knew Eve had not completed all of the subjects listed in her educational records. That secret had remained hidden for more than 9 years. Lady Aubrey knew, Eugene knew, but no one outside their household was supposed to know. Yet somehow, Vincent knew. And that is where Vincent becomes far more interesting. How did he find out? How much investigating had he done before Eve arrived? And why? Vincent warned her that if the truth reached the administration or other wealthy families, her chances of ever becoming a governess could disappear. Then he offered to keep her secret, as long as she remained. That was no longer an ordinary job offer. Vincent had discovered Eve's weakness and was using it to control the situation. But before Eve could decide what to do, 2 men appeared farther down the corridor. One was Vincent's father, Edward Moriarty. The other was a man named Lennon Morris, and Lennon had a scar near his eye. The moment Eve saw him, something changed inside her. For years, she had struggled to remember the face of the monster who murdered her mother. She had been only a child. Many of the details had faded, but one memory remained: the scar. And now, standing inside the Moriarty mansion, was a man who appeared to match that memory. Eve froze. Could Lennon Morris truly be the man who murdered her mother? She could not be certain, but she could not simply walk away either. Vincent noticed the change in her expression. He noticed the anxiety in her eyes, and that tells us something very important about him. Vincent watches people. He does not only listen to what they say, he notices what they do not say. He notices hesitation, fear, facial expressions, tiny reactions, and he stores that information. Vincent turned away as though he were prepared to accept Eve's decision, but Eve stopped him. She would take the job. Vincent turned back, and although Eve did not see it, there was satisfaction behind his smile. Eve believed she had decided to remain because she needed access to Lennon Morris. But something tells me Vincent had wanted her inside that mansion from the beginning, and now he had succeeded. Once Eve accepted the position, Vincent quickly established the rules. First, she was expected to address him properly. Not Mr. Moriarty, not Vincent, Master Vincent. Eve could barely force herself to say it. Then she clarified that she had been hired to serve as Allie's governess and nothing more. Vincent naturally turned even that into another opportunity to tease her. He then placed 1 gold coin and 2 silver coins into Eve's hand as an advance payment, her first earnings. But the money came with another warning. Because Vincent had personally hired her, she would answer to him. Only him. That statement carried far more weight than Eve may have realized. Vincent was not merely offering her employment, he was placing her directly beneath his authority. When Eve returned to the piano room, Allie's eyes brightened. The little girl was happy that she had stayed, and despite everything that had happened, Eve was happy too. She finally had the position she had worked toward for years. When she returned home after 4 o'clock, Lady Aubrey and Eugene were anxiously waiting. Eugene had even begun worrying that Eve had somehow lost her way. But Eve arrived smiling. She had gotten the job. Lady Aubrey embraced her. Eugene immediately declared that the occasion deserved a celebration. Then came one of the most touching moments in these episodes. Eve took the gold coin she had earned and placed it into Lady Aubrey's hand. She wanted the woman who had raised her, protected her, and educated her to receive the first reward from her work. Lady Aubrey refused. She reminded Eve that she owed her nothing. Whatever circumstances had originally brought Eve into her home, Eve had become no less than a daughter to her. But Eve placed the coin back into Lady Aubrey's hand. She told her that if her mother were still alive, she would have given the coin to her. That changed everything. Lady Aubrey finally accepted it, not as payment, but as a gift from her daughter. That moment reminded us that family is not always created by blood. Sometimes family is created through sacrifice, protection, loyalty, and love. But the warmth quickly disappeared when Eve revealed the name of the family who had hired her: the Moriartys. Lady Aubrey knew of them. They were wealthy, established, powerful, and something about the situation immediately concerned her. Why would a family of that standing personally invite an inexperienced young woman from Meadow to become their governess? Lady Aubrey instructed Eugene to investigate them. Then Eve revealed the real reason she had accepted the position. She believed she had found the man who murdered her mother. Lady Aubrey immediately became serious. Eve explained that the man had a scar near his eye and was associated with Edward Moriarty. She could not say with absolute certainty that Lennon Morris was the killer. Her memories were too old and fragmented, but something about him had awakened the terror she had carried since childhood. Lady Aubrey warned Eve to be extremely careful, She reminded her that the world they lived in did not leave much room for mistakes, especially when powerful people were involved. And that warning brings us to what makes episodes 11 through 15 so important. Eve's journey is no longer simply about becoming independent. Her new job has connected her directly to the murder of her mother. She is now working inside a mansion filled with powerful people she knows very little about. She has formed an immediate connection with a mysterious child who barely speaks. She has come face to face with a man who may have murdered her mother. And she is working directly beneath Master Vincent Moriarty, a man who already knows things about Eve that no outsider should know. My thoughts. These episodes completely change the direction of the Drowning Moon. And my biggest question is this: who really sent that invitation? The letter claimed that someone had recommended Eve because of her educational qualifications. But Vincent already knew about Mr. Walsh. He already knew about Eve's educational records. He had clearly investigated her background. And when Theo informed him that the governess who slapped Mr. Walsh had arrived, Vincent said he had been looking forward to meeting this unusual woman. That does not sound like someone who discovered Eve by accident. So I have a theory. I believe Vincent may have had something to do with bringing Eve into that mansion. Perhaps he heard about the woman who slapped Mr. Walsh and became curious. Perhaps he believed she could somehow reach Allie. Or perhaps Vincent knows something about Genevieve Barlow's past that he has not revealed. And that possibility is what makes him so intriguing. Then there is Allie. Why is this little girl so quiet? Why did Eve reach her so quickly? And what happened with the governess who came before? There is clearly more to Allie's story than we know. And then we have Lennon Morris. The scar connects him to one of Eve's oldest and most painful memories. But childhood memories can be complicated. Is Lennon truly the man who murdered Eve's mother? Or is Eve about to pursue the wrong person? And finally, Master Vincent. He is arrogant. He is inappropriate. He is calculating. But he is also observant, intelligent, and clearly interested in Eve for reasons we do not yet understand. The attraction and irritation between these two characters are already creating a very interesting dynamic. Eve does not trust him. Vincent enjoys provoking her, and yet the two of them are now tied together by a secret. That combination can become very dangerous. Rating: for the mystery, emotional development, Eve's connection with Allie, the arrival of the man with the scar, and the introduction of Master Vincent as a much more complicated character than we initially believed, I give episodes 11 through 15 a 9.5 out of 10. The story has officially opened a much larger mystery, and I am completely invested. Question of the day. Now I want to hear from you. Do you believe Lennon Morris is really the man who murdered Eve's mother? And more importantly, why do you think Master Vincent was so determined to keep Eve inside the Moriarty mansion? Was it simply because Allie liked her? Was Vincent personally curious about Eve? Or did he already know something about her past before that mysterious invitation was ever sent? Drop your theories in the comments because I definitely want to hear what you think. Please remember to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss another review from Stories by Anna. And until next time, remember, sometimes the opportunity we have been praying for arrives through a door we never expected. But before we walk through it, we should always ask ourselves, who opened that door and why? This is Stories by Anna, Faith, Hope, and Life Lessons.